and he feels disrespected at the same time. And because he doesn't understand what he is learning, he learns to memorize it so he can regurgitate it on a test, only to forget it afterwards. I think a lot of us have experienced that. Independence, individuality, and self-worth are crippled and sabotaged. In my view, one of the biggest sins is pressuring and expecting the child to progress with the group. Therefore, children who are either bright or delayed are made to think that there's something wrong with them. Being alone is not valued. Children are pushed to socialize, and shy, quiet children are criticized as being odd or different. Children are made to feel that if the group doesn't accept them, something is wrong with them. This sets up a mob mentality. Witness the children in inner city schools who get beat up if they try to learn. So children get the message early on that others matter more than they do. This sets the foundation for dependency, paving the way for peer group pressure. And everyone knows that if the group doesn't accept you, something is wrong with you. I could go on and on about discipline, but another big sin is to punish the group for what one child does, which just undermines a child's sense of control over himself and dependency on others. And then there is the atrocity of punishing the child who defends himself against bullies. Socialist infiltrations, such as multiculturalism, give the child the message that his culture doesn't matter, but everyone else's does. And political correctness shuts down independent thought completely. Then, by the time he gets to college, he is taught in philosophy classes that there is no such thing as reality, which confirms the incompetence of his mind and seals his lack of self-esteem. He has developed no confidence in the validity of his own mind, and since he has been told outright that he can't be sure of anything, he just repeats what he hears others say, and he accepts that as the truth. Can you see how this leads to the problems we are seeing today? No wonder the left is pushing for censorship, since no one can know anything for sure, because reality is supposedly unknowable. People have to rely on what others say is true. Therefore, when a businessman expresses his disgust for socialism, saying that he has a right to make a profit, he shouldn't be allowed to express it, because, if enough people hear him, they might think they also have a right to make a profit. Or, if a member of the Tea Party movement proclaims that our lives belong to us and not the government, other people might hear it and, that wouldn't be too good, if other people hear it and other people start thinking that that's the case. No wonder the media has so much power with a populist that believes reality is what someone else says. And surely the media knows the truth. No wonder adults cannot think in principles. They don't make the connection from one concept to another, figure out the causes of events, form conclusions, nor figure out the solutions to problems. When you fully explain how government regulations are killing one industry, they just cite another corporation that should be regulated. People seem to understand that counterfeiting is stealing, yet they approve of the government confiscating our money by printing dollars in order to pay for all of its spending. When you explain why socialized medicine is immoral, they try to refute it by claiming that they know people who like socialized medicine. Since they can't think in principles, they don't see that Romneycare and Obamacare are just two different versions of the same thing. Since they do not understand cause and effect, when you try to explain to them that raising taxes will kill jobs or that government deficit spending causes inflation, loss of jobs longer term, they don't get it. No wonder people cannot retain what politicians say from one week to the next. They have poor memories. I wonder how that happened. They learned how to have poor memories in school when they haphazardly memorized secondhand information. passed off as knowledge, and then they forgot it afterwards. Good memories happen when learning takes place in logical order and practicing with the lessons are allowed until understanding is attained. Children need time to reflect and think about what they are taught. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Jane Healey. Jane Healey is a brain development expert. She's written fabulous books. I've read several of them, but two of her best are Your Child's Growing Mind, A Guide to Learning and Brain Development from Birth to Adolescence, and the second one is great, Endangered Minds, Why Children Don't Think and What We Can Do About It. Okay, she said this, listen to this. Children are not allowed to sit and think. They are constantly rammed through a curriculum to see how fast we can move them along. As they're marched from activity to activity, even the schedule of the school day doesn't allow time for anyone to reflect. The key word is understanding, not just a forced march through a set body of subject matters. Children who can't reflect and who have never been able to pause long enough to be able to solve a difficult problem are going to be far down on the literacy scale. End of quote. No wonder people think that it's okay to force others to share the wealth or pay their fair share. When they were forced to share in school, they learned that property rights don't mean anything. No wonder with all the big push for children to have self-esteem, they don't have any. How can anyone have self-esteem when they know that their mind is incompetent? And people who are insecure don't feel confident to take care of themselves, and so they want someone else to do it. And guess who that is? The government. No wonder people have turned into sheep. No wonder they conform so readily. No wonder people can't think. They've never been taught how. Government schools have kept students concrete bound at the perceptual level, just like animals. And just as the wrong medicine can potentially kill a body, the wrong education can potentially kill the mind. Ideas are what shape and move the world, and acceptance of ideas have consequences. It is the ideas of John Dewey, the father of modern education, that are responsible for the complete destruction of thinking in schools today. He was not in favor of training the conceptual mind about reality. He said this, quote, "The mere absorbing of facts and truths is so exclusively individual an affair that it tends very naturally to pass into selfishness. There is no obvious social motive for the acquirement of mere learning. There is no clear social gain in success thereat." End of quote. He also said this. Listen to this. "Anyone who has begun to think places some portion of the world in jeopardy." End of quote. This is the guy, that's responsible for what's going on. For John Dewey, the purpose of education was socialization, not teaching a child how to think. And look at the results. Properly educated, a person should be self-confident because he is sure of what he knows. He should be independent and be able to ascertain the facts of reality on his own. Is that what we have today? No. We have a nation of people who can't be sure of anything, so just run around repeating what they've heard everybody else say. And dictators love a dummy-down populace. How fortunate for governments that the people they administer don't think. You know who said that? Adolf Hitler. Here's an excerpt about education from my very favorite book, Atlas Shrugged, by Ayn Rand. Quote, "He thought of all the living species that train their young in the art of survival, the cats who teach their kittens to hunt, the birds who spend such strident effort on teaching their fledglings to fly, Yet man, whose tool of survival is the mind, does not merely fail to teach a child to think, but devotes the child's education to the purpose of destroying his brain, of convincing him that his thought is futile and evil before he has started to think. Men would shudder, he thought, if they saw a mother bird plucking the feathers from the wings of her young, then pushing him out of the nest to struggle for survival. Yet that was what they did to their children. End of quote. The United States is at a crossing point. In these turbulent times, our future lies with the minds of our children. They need a proper education. Give children the gift of life and teach them how to think. And I might add, get the government out of education. Nothing could be more important for their lives and our future. Thank you. Questions? In the back?
I'm giving a little bit of fresh air. I'm doing a week with a charter school, non-union teachers union. Yay. Yeah, they raise chickens, and they sell them. They have a big greenhouse, and they're going to sell vegetables and stuff. And they have a little restaurant that they actually run and sell food. I mean, and they're teaching teaching the kids the basic of $1 and what they can do and how they make a living with it. I mean, this is kind of a breath of fresh air. I don't think in Winona, Minnesota. I mean, this is kind of a thing that we all need, and that nobody teaches anything about economics anymore.
We do at our school.
You do? Okay, great.
Back.
Hi, Darlene Schwichtenberg. I have a 10th grader. We have 5 girls, and I have a 10th grader going to the Chanhassen High School. And $94 million school, the English teacher, and I brought papers tonight, and I specifically came so I could listen to you. I wanted you to read these things. I have some communication with an English teacher who is having the kids read a book called Kite Runner. And they also read Into the Wild. And these are, to me, adult books, and it talks about naked people, and I'm just going to spell words, C-U-N-T, that they called. Of course, Sarah Palin and everybody's being, run over the ringer with this, but my daughter gets to read this book, and she didn't even know what that word meant. And there is also raping of an 11-year-old boy while some senior boys hold this kid down, and it's overseas. And this teacher, I got the responses from this teacher about how he thinks this is teaching the kids, because they don't know a lot of things that go on overseas, what's happening over there. And I'm thinking, and I put in here, what does that have to do with English class? I sent this out to the school board members. I sent it out to different principals. I sent it out to a lot of my friends. I sent it out to some legislatures, and I'm thinking, and the principal, of course, sent me a response too, and he would rather I call him instead of doing emails. So I do have some proof of what he has said in here, and it's disgusting. It's 10th grade. It's English class, and I tried to get her out of this class, and I put in my response that this isn't going to happen with my daughter, so she got to do a different book. But I tried to get her out of the class the next day, not knowing that she was in that class already. And I know one of the ladies who is the secretary there, I used to cut her hair, and I said, Tammy, how can I get her out of this class? She's in this class right now. And my husband is listening to it. I go, Bruce, she's in the class. How are we going to get her out of here? And she goes, well, the principal's really busy right now, and the assistant principal's really busy right now, and actually they have another administrator in the school, and this is just, I think, a week ago. I don't know. April 16th. No, that's when I printed it. Never mind. It's a different one that my other daughter's dealing with. And here, I had written in my thing about kids mimicking things that they read in books, okay, which we all know this is true because you're talking about the mind.